The last call came from a dead number. I answered, and the nightmare began. It's been a year, 365 days since I last saw Clara smile, heard her laugh, felt her hand in mine. A year since she walked out of our apartment to go for a run and never came back. The police called it a disappearance with no suspicious circumstances. They meant she left me. But I knew her. Clara wouldn't just leave. Not without a word. Not without her favorite running shoes, which were still by the door. Grief is a strange architect. It rebuilds your world around a hollow space. My hollow space was shaped exactly like her. I kept her side of the bed empty. I left her coffee mug on the counter. And I kept paying for her phone plan. My friends, the few that still called, told me to let it go, to move on. But how could I? Canceling her number felt like admitting she was gone forever. It felt like a betrayal. So, every month, the bill would come, and I would pay it. A small, absurd ritual of hope. The anniversary was the worst. I spent the day locked in our apartment, drowning in memories. Every shadow looked like her silhouette. Every creak of the old building sounded like her footsteps. By night, I was just a ghost in my own home, haunted by a life that was no longer mine. That's when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, expecting my mom or my sister with their gentle, pitying voices. But my heart stopped. The blood in my veins turned to ice. The name on the screen wasn't a name. It was a photo. Her photo, Clara. My thumb trembled over the green icon. This was impossible. Her phone was gone, vanished with her. This had to be a cruel prank or a mistake, a glitch in the system. But I had to answer. I had to know. I slid my thumb across the screen and pressed the phone to my ear. My breath caught in my throat. "Hello," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Clara." The only answer was a sound like a rushing wind, a thick wall of static, hissing and crackling, empty and vast. I listened, straining to hear something, anything, underneath the noise. A voice, a breath, but there was nothing. Just the sound of a dead line, an empty connection. After a minute, the call ended. I stared at the phone in my hand, my mind racing. A prank, it had to be. Someone got a hold of her SIM card, but the police had her phone records. The line had been dead since the day she disappeared. I tried calling back. The automated voice was instant and clinical. "The number you have dialed is not in service." Of course, it hadn't been for a year. I threw the phone onto the couch, my brief, insane flicker of hope replaced by a wave of anger and despair. I tried to forget it, to dismiss it as a technical ghost in the machine, but it was just the beginning. The next night, it happened again. At the same time, Clara's picture on my screen. I answered faster this time, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "Who is this?" I demanded. "This isn't funny." Again, only static answered. But this time, it felt different. The noise seemed to have a pattern, a rhythm, like waves on a distant shore. And underneath it, faint and almost imperceptible, I thought I heard something. A whisper, so quiet I was sure I had imagined it. I stayed on the line for 10 minutes listening to the electronic sea, until it disconnected again. The calls became my new routine. Every night, just after 10 p.m., I stopped feeling scared and started feeling expectant. It was a ritual of madness. I would sit in the dark, wait for her picture to light up the screen, and then spend the next 10 minutes listening to static, trying to decipher a ghost's whisper. I told no one. How could I? I'm getting calls from my dead girlfriend's phone. They would have me committed. Then, on the 5th night, everything changed. The static was there, but it was thinner, less oppressive. And then, from the depths of the noise, a single word emerged. It was distorted, broken by crackles, but I heard it. I would have recognized it anywhere. Alexei. It was her nickname for me. A stupid private name she came up with one night when we were drunk on cheap wine and laughter. No one else in the world knew that name. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a glitch. I was listening to a voice from the other side. "Clara," I choked out, tears welling in my eyes. "Oh my God. Clara, is that you?" The voice didn't answer. The static rushed back in, thicker than before, and the call ended, but it didn't matter. I had my proof. She was out there somewhere reaching for me. The question was, from where? My obsession began in earnest. I bought audio recording equipment and software to clean up the signal. I spent my days analyzing the static, filtering frequencies, desperate to pull her voice from the noise. And slowly, painfully I did. A few nights later I captured another phrase. "The lake. You forgot the umbrella." It was a memory from our second date. A sudden downpour had caught us, and we'd ended up soaked, shivering, but laughing. It was a perfect, tiny moment that belonged only to us. The voice was like a drug. Every new fragment of a memory it fed me. Every private detail it whispered through the static only made me need more. I stopped sleeping. I barely ate. My world shrank to the four walls of my apartment and the nightly calls that were my only connection to her. My friends left worried voicemails. I never listened to them. They were part of the world that had lost Clara. I was living in a world where I was finding her again. Then came the call that sent me over the edge. The voice was clearer this time, more coherent. "The oak tree," it rasped, "behind my mother's house. You remember? The time capsule, I remembered. When we were 20, we buried a small wooden box under the big oak in her parents' backyard. We filled it with trinkets, a concert ticket, a dried flower, a silly photo, a letter we wrote to our future selves. We promised we'd dig it up on our 10th anniversary. We never got the chance. No one, not even her parents, knew about that box. The next morning I drove the 2 hours to her parents' house. I didn't call ahead. I waited until they left for their weekly grocery shopping, then snuck into the backyard with a shovel, feeling like a thief. I dug frantically under the shade of the old oak, my hands raw, my heart hammering. After a few minutes, the shovel hit something hard. I fell to my knees and pulled it from the earth. The small mud-caked box. It was real. I sat there on the damped grass, the box in my lap, and I wept. It was all the proof I needed. This wasn't just my grief-addled mind playing tricks. It was her. It had to be. That night, I waited for the call with a new sense of purpose. When her face appeared, I answered with a steady voice. I found it, Clara. I found the box. Asterisk for a moment. There was only the familiar static. Then, a new sound came, through the line. A sound that wasn't a word. It was a chuckle, a low, guttural, airy sound. It wasn't Clara's laugh. Her laugh was bright and full of life. This sound was hollow, predatory. A chill snaked its way up my spine. Clara. The tone of the voice shifted. The nostalgia was gone, replaced by something cold and commanding. The old mill, it whispered, the words sharp and clear now. Blackwood Mill, by the river. Go there. Go where it ended. The police had searched that abandoned mill for weeks. It was the last place her phone had pinged before it went dead. From nothing. No signs of a struggle. No witnesses. Nothing. It was a dead end. But the voice sounded so sure. My hope was now tangled with a growing, terrifying dread. The voice on the phone was my only link to her, but for the first time, I felt a sliver of doubt. Was it leading me to her? Or was it leading me into a trap? It didn't matter. I had to know. I drove to the mill that night. It was a skeletal silhouette against the moonless sky, its windows like vacant eyes. My phone was pressed to my ear. The call had connected the moment I'd left my apartment, and the voice had stayed with me, a constant presence. It wasn't whispering memories anymore. It was giving directions. Turn left here. Park behind the collapsed wall. They won't see you. Who were they? I didn't ask. I just obeyed. I walked through the shattered fence, my footsteps echoing in the unnatural silence of the place. The voice guided me through a maze of rusting machinery and decaying walkways. Down it hissed, to the basement. To the boiler room. The air grew cold and damp as I descended the concrete stairs. The basement was a cavern of darkness, the only light coming from my phone's screen. The voice directed me to a specific corner, to a massive defunct boiler that looked like some ancient iron beast. Behind it, the voice whispered, its tone now vibrating with a strange excitement. The wall. A loose brick. Pull it. My fingers, numb with cold and fear, fumbled against the damp brickwork. One brick was indeed loose. I wedged my fingers into the cracks and pulled. It slid out with a grating sound, releasing a puff of stale, musty air. I shined my phone's light into the cavity. My breath hitched. Inside the dark hole wasn't a note or a clue. It was a phone. A cracked, mud-stained phone. I recognized the case immediately. It was Clara's, the phone that had vanished with her. With a trembling hand, I reached in and pulled it out. The screen was shattered in a spiderweb pattern. But as my thumb brushed against the power button, it flickered to life. A low battery warning flashed, and then the home screen appeared. Home screen. A picture of us, smiling on a beach. And that's when the world tilted on its axis. I was holding Clara's phone. It was in my hand, but my own phone was still pressed against my ear. The call was still active. My blood ran cold as the impossible logic settled in my mind. If her phone was here, how was it calling me? The static on my line cut out completely. The silence was absolute, deafening. And then the voice spoke again, but it was completely transformed. It was no longer a distorted whisper. It was a deep, resonant, and horribly calm voice, a man's voice or something pretending to be. Thank you, it said, the words smooth as polished stone. I couldn't leave this place, not without help. It's so much easier when you bring me a familiar face. My heart seized. I slowly lowered my phone and looked at the reflection in the cracked screen of the phone in my other hand, Clara's phone. For a horrifying split second, the face staring back at me from the dark glass wasn't my own. It was gaunt, with sunken eyes and a wide, unnatural smile that stretched too far across its cheeks. I stumbled back, dropping her phone. It clattered on the concrete floor. My own phone was still in my hand, dead and silent. The call had ended. I was alone in the dark. And then, a phone started to ring. The sound was sharp, loud, and impossibly close. It wasn't coming from my phone, or from Clara's on the floor. It was coming from right behind me. Time froze. Every atom in my being screamed for me to run, to flee this damp basement, and never look back. But my body wouldn't obey. Fear was an anchor, pinning me to the concrete. The ringing went on, a familiar, mundane sound that had become the melody of hell itself. With an effort that felt like it took an eternity, I forced myself to turn. There was nothing there, just the damp brick wall, the rusted iron boiler, and the shadows that danced in the flickering light of my phone. The ringing stopped. The silence that followed was even worse. "Who's there?" I stammered, my own voice sounding alien, a thin echo. In the oppressive dark, a voice answered, and my blood turned to ice. It was my own voice. "I am," the voice said, coming from the darkest corner of the room. From the blackness, a figure stepped forward, and I screamed. A scream that wouldn't come, that out caught in my throat by a knot of pure absolute terror. It was me. The figure was a perfect copy of myself. It wore the same clothes, had the same messy hair, the same 3-day stubble, but the eyes were wrong. They were hollow like a mannequin's, and the smile, it was that same wide, unnatural smile I had seen in the reflection. The copy of me held up its hand. In it was a phone, identical to my own. The screen lit up, displaying an incoming call. Clara's picture smiled at me. She was the bait, my double said, in my voice, but with no emotion. Her pain, her memories, they were the key to lure you. But the signal was weak. I needed you here. I needed to see you, to learn you. It took another step toward me. "It's so much easier when you have a familiar face," it repeated, the smile stretching even wider. "Yours." My own phone, the one I still held in my trembling hand, began to vibrate. I looked down. The screen was dissolving. Not the glass, but the image. The icons were melting like wax, fading into a gray static. An error message appeared. "Now it's signal found." I looked up. My double was right in front of me now. "There can't be two signals," it said. "Only one." It reached out with its free hand and touched my forehead. The touch was cold, like a statue. And I felt myself fading. My memories, my grief, my love for Clara. It was all being pulled out of me, siphoned into it. I was a file being deleted. The progress bar of my existence was reaching its end. The last thing I saw was my own eyes, now filled with a cold, alien intelligence. The last thing I heard was my own voice, chuckling softly in the dark. Then my double put its phone in its pocket, turned, and walked up the stairs out of the basement, whistling a tune I used to whistle. It walked out into the night, into my life, to my car. I was left behind, an empty shell, a terminated core, the final static fading into the eternal silence of that forgotten place. The signal had been lost.